Hello, Raise Your Volume Academy community, my dear Rivas. This is Tiffany Kane, your host, and I'm here today to talk about the question that I have been asking all of my guests. The question is, what does it mean to raise your volume? And I've been asking my guests that question and starting my podcast episodes lately with that question. And I think it's a really powerful question. And it's one I would love for you to ask yourself. And reach out to me. Tell me what you think it means to raise your volume. I have been thinking about this question deeply lately. When I started this phase of the podcast, the Raise Your Volume phase, I was in a place where I really wanted to talk about politics, raising our volume for women in the sciences and women in tech. I wanted to talk about social issues, civil issues, racial issues, LGBTQ issues. I really wanted to talk about all of those things that we as women often haven't been able to have powerful conversations about. Maybe we haven't been invited to the table to talk about it. Our viewpoints have not been honored on these topics. We are grossly underrepresented in those areas. And that's what I really, really wanted to talk about. And, I still do. I really still do. But shortly after making the shift to Raise Your Volume, my sister-in-law was murdered by her ex-husband, domestic violence. And then the horrible Israel, Palestine, Hamas tragedy happened. And then I found out that one of my dearest friends has terminal liver cancer. And all of these combined with going through a phase in my business where my partner and I are growing, trying to start a studio, and that opens up a whole can of worms of trying to find funding and all of the vulnerabilities that come with basically opening your financial story to all of these strangers that you are saying, hey, believe in my vision and fund my company, has me really questioning what I want to talk about, how I want to talk about it, how I want to show up in the world. And frankly, leaves me in knots. I have an upset stomach all the time. And so I'm coming to you today just openly saying, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I want to raise my volume about. There's a part of me that wants to just go out and scream. Just scream about almost nothing. And there's a part of me that wants to hide under the covers and pull the covers under my head and not say anything. And I think these parts of me are warring with each other. And I think my conditioning from my life, being raised in the high control religion, many call a cult, being in a very controlling, toxic marriage, working in an industry that has a lot of control, the education industry, there's so much control over the way we can show up in the world and what we can say and cannot say. I've lived in a place of high control most of my life. And I'm finally out of all of that. And I'm in a place where I get to talk about the things I want to talk about. I get to show up the way I want to show up. I get to say the things I want to say. And I find that exhilarating and utterly terrifying. And right when I think, okay, this is how I want to show up, this is what I want to say, something kind of comes along and sweeps me off my feet and makes me want to revert to the conditioning from all of that high control of basically shut up, be quiet, don't say anything, hide your head. And that's where I'm at right now. So I don't have any big advice. I don't have any big ahas. I don't have any words of wisdom, any words of inspiration. I don't have anything other than to say, are you there too? Do you feel these things? Do you feel this pull to speak out and speak up and shine bright and be someone inspirational and making your mark on the world? And also have this intense pull to be quiet and hide under the covers. And how are you dealing with that? What are you saying? How do you deal with those feelings and those emotions? I would love for you to reach out to me. I would love to hear how you are managing all of this. For me, I'm finding that having a loving partner to go through all of this with is super helpful. We talk openly. We share our emotions. He listens very well and does his very best to support me through the massive range of emotions I'm feeling right now, as I'm trying to support him through all his emotions he's feeling right now. That's very helpful. I have a beautiful community of friends. Some I feel more comfortable talking to this, talking about all of these issues about than others. Some, you have many different friends in your life where you can talk about different things with them and open up in different ways. And I'm very grateful that I have those different types of friends in my life that help with these different areas. And so I'm leaning on them, or trying to let myself lean on them, because my instinct is to self-isolate and go on my own, and that's not healthy. And so I'm really trying to reach out and ask for help and ask for support, and also be supportive, because when we help others, we help ourselves. And this podcast and the community around this podcast is super helpful. I got to be on a podcast interview last night that was so lovely. And the questions she was asking me and the things she had me talk about, it was like, oh, that's right. That's who I am. This is what I stand for. Like, she was asking me really good questions where I got to dig deep and talk about the things I'm passionate about. And it was just a nice little reminder of, oh, okay, I do have something to say. And I'm really grateful for that reminder. It was a really nice aha moment. So getting to be a part of this podcast community, getting invited to share my story and my insights on other people's podcasts is really helpful. It's really good for the introspection and the thinking about things. So that's where I'm at right now. And I'm wondering, where are you? What is helping you? Do you have books that are helping you? Do you have books that are inspiring you right now? Do you have people you're following on social media that are inspiring you right now? Do you have podcasts you're listening to that are inspiring you right now? If you do, reach out to me. Tell me about them. I would love to know who is inspiring you. I want to tell you about my dear friend who is inspiring me right now. Her story is so powerful. My dear friend, Rebecca Johnson, she is the one that I told you just got diagnosed with stage 4 terminal liver cancer, and it's got a much longer name, and she says it without tripping over it, and I don't know how she does that. She is a podcaster. Her podcast is called Love Is Not Dead, Just My Husband. She's been a guest on this podcast, and she's a dear friend of mine. She's the kind of person that helps you see the world in a different way. She has a wonderful sense of humor that some people love and some people don't get. And I'm okay with that. I love her sense of humor. She has this view on the world that is just so special. And I am posting her podcast in the show notes below. She's really inspiring me because even with this devastating terminal cancer diagnosis, she is full of hope and she has these goals. And one of her big goals is to get 10,000 downloads on her podcast in the first year. And her first year starts in January. And so the goal is to get her to that 10,000 downloads on her podcast, 10,000 listens by the end of December. And she's really inspiring me because she's setting goals and being hopeful in the midst of this terminal diagnosis. She's holding on to hope. And as she said in her last episode on her podcast is her legacy. That's where people will get to hear her voice when she's gone. That's where her son will get to hear her voice, where her friends will get to hear her voice, where the community she has built will get to hear her voice after she is gone. And it's so beautiful that she says that, because that's really why we do this. That's why we have these podcasts. That's why we show up, is to create some sort of connection, some sort of legacy, some way of saying, this is how I existed in the world. This is how I connected to other humans. These are the things I cared about. These are the things I was passionate about. This is how I'm helping the world. And she is doing that with her podcast. So I encourage you to listen to her podcast. This is how she's raising her volume. And this is how I'm raising my volume right now, really supporting her and supporting others doing amazing work. It's helping me feel better with all of the stuff that I'm going through. So friends, remember to support the people you love. Remember to raise your volume. I'm listening.